Men, in what ways have you experienced sexism? My girlfriend, at the time, repeatedly hurt me, scratched me, ripped my shirt, and ripped the rearview mirror off my car while I was driving. I drove her to her mother's while this was happening. When we got there, she refused to get out. Me and her younger sister, who came out after we got there, both had to physically pull her out of the car. She kept trying to get back in. I finally got her out and locked the doors and drove away. When I got on the highway, 3 cop cars were waiting for me. They charged me, despite the fact that I was visibly harmed with red marks, scratches, and a ripped shirt, and the inside of my car was trashed. Her justification? Her face was red. Yeah, her face was red. She was having a mental breakdown and crying nonstop because I told her I was leaving her. $700 lost because they towed my car. I was also in the middle of applying for RCMP training at this time and nearly aced the aptitude test but couldn't continue because of the pending charge. I also missed out on another job that I knew I was going to get when the criminal record check came back with the dismissed charge. They always want to be the heroes. Gooners, man. Story 2. Being mistreated and laughed at. Time to tell my story. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds, and used to work as a bouncer. I always tried my best not to be aggressive or anything because I know sometimes alcohol leads people to make stupid decisions. So I'd always approach everyone in a very polite, non-threatening way. Usually that worked because it would de-escalate things and all. One night, this group of girls started to create trouble at the club where I used to work. When I found out what was going on and tried to calm things down like I always did, one small intoxicated girl jumped me. She was insane, screaming, being loud and racist. I'm Latino, she was white. I tried to calm her down, but since that wasn't working, I told her I was going to escort her out. I reached for my radio and called for backup. She was with a big group, 7 to 10 girls. Out of nowhere, she started to scream at me, trying to scratch my eyes and trying to kick me in the other places. Other bouncers came and took her off me. The manager finally showed up and the police were called. When they arrived and collected statements, I went over to them saying I wanted to press charges due to the fact that I was wounded from my neck and hands. They laughed at me and said they won't waste their time and that nothing will come out of it. The girls were let go by the police and went on their way, laughing at me. I went over to my manager, complaining that he was supposed to help us or something. His response? Man up. Clean yourself up and get back to work. I did clean myself up, patched my injuries, and quit on the spot. Screw him, and screw those cops as well. Story 3. Odd one. I don't think it is considered sexism, but my male principal has made it very clear that he dislikes only the men at my school. So myself, along with the other 4 or 5 male teachers out of about 32 staff members, get awful evaluation scores, and he BS's reasoning why. I think he just wants to pretend to be top dog. Makes it even sadder when even the female staff say things like, I can do whatever I want since he likes me. Gooner. Another gooner. Story 4. A former female coworker would oftentimes sit around talking about guys she had fooled with and once showed me a Johnson pic that some guy sent her. She thought it was funny. I went to my supervisor and told her it made me uncomfortable and it felt really inappropriate. She basically told me to just ignore her. A couple months later, I was fired because that same coworker accused me of some sort of mistreatment. I did absolutely nothing to her, and they wouldn't tell me what she said I had done. Story 5. I didn't get a job at a company because the woman who would train me, and I quote, doesn't really like men and refuses to train one. I had signed the contract already and they ripped it up. She was the only one who knew how to do the job, so they had to give her what she wanted. Story 6. Slight sexism usually gives me a good chuckle. People can't accept the fact that I'm the primary caregiver for her son. Examples. At his pediatrician's office for a checkup, you probably have to ask your wife, but do you know if he can jump stack 4 blocks, etc.? He will also never call me to confirm appointments or for follow-up calls. He always call my wife's number and leave a voicemail despite us asking several times to contact me first. When out and about with my son? Not with Dad today, huh? That's fun. Good luck, Dad. Good luck, Dad, my butt. Story 7. For a figure drawing class in university, since we didn't have a model for the first week, the professor just told us to go home and draw something with a figure. Anything. Literally anything, so long as it had a human figure. I love fantasy art, so I went home and drew a smiling wood nymph sitting bare upon a stump, all covered with mushrooms and flowers. When I presented my drawing to the next class, the prof and another student tried to give me crap about objectifying women. It turned into a 20-minute-long spiel about men depicting women in art, and how it's bad and I got a C- as a result. Literally just because I was the only dude who chose to draw a bare woman in a figure drawing class. Yeah, I should have drawn a box stroll or something. Maybe they would have been happy about that. Story 8. I was at a summer camp with a bunch of other guys. The girls and the guys were in the same dorm, but both sides were closed off by a door that needed a key card to enter the other side. The boys were blamed for stealing an iPhone charger, which is literally not possible on the girl side. A guy got his mattress put on a wall. off the frame and put up on the wall, and he was upset about it. We got held back from going to our designated sports time. Of course, only the guys, not the girls, and all for nothing because it was the custodians cleaning after suspensions of bed bugs. Finally, me and 4 other guys were brought into a room and accused of mistreating girls. I know for a fact I did not mistreat anyone. That camp was a horrible 3-week experience. Press charges. Story 9. I had a female manager falsely accuse me of mistreatment and had no way to defend myself. It was my word against hers. She changed her story 3 times. I proved innocence the first 2 times with the emails and people who could overhear the conversation and vouch for me. And the 3rd time, it was something totally new that I couldn't disprove because she called for a closed-door meeting with me and her. She did it because she had not done any work in 6 months and needed to deflect responsibility for this. This, along with a few other things, gave me a lot of anxiety and depression. I cried, recalling this experience to my mother, and she told me I was just afraid of strong women. Strong women in my butt? Story 10. I made a terrible mistake. I was a contributor to Google Maps for a few years before having kids, and it's something I really enjoyed. After having kids, I spent 90% of my free time with them and noticed that there weren't any good images of parks when I was looking for one age appropriate for a 2-year-old. Unwittingly, I think, cavernous discretion, what a great opportunity to get some views and maybe earn these socks I keep hearing about. I grabbed a few wide shots of the entire area and a photosphere in the middle of the few islands of the playground, and they came out great. They were just what I was looking for to help ID parks for various age ranges. Naturally, that concept collapsed as soon as the police arrived. Meanwhile, there is some lady with a telescopic lens taking all the pictures she wants, shaking her head disapprovingly while I try to explain that I'm here with my son. Hobby lost, parental embarrassment, poor first exposure to the police for my kid. From a parent's point of view, I understand the optics, but if you really don't want me to have a picture of an entire playground structure that happens to have your kid in it, come talk to me. I'm not a terribly intimidating guy, and I'd gladly delete it if you just talk to me. Calling the cops was a bit much considering how many cameras or smartphones there. Karen and cops team up. Story 11. Years ago, I was hired at a Denny's to wait tables. I did my week of training, including working a busy shift with my trainer just watching from across the room and keeping the $100 in tips I made. Before training could be finished, I had to pass a written test. I took the test, got 80% of the answers right, and was told I had to pass with a 90 or above, but I was told by the female, also gay manager, now that I had failed once, I had to pass with 100%. I was told by 3 female servers that they were told they passed the test with lower scores than I had, and one never even had to take it. Everyone who worked there said the GM hated men, and that's why she did that. And she doesn't deserve a job. Story 12. I've been harmed and mistreated by several women in the past. They often feel entitled to me, and it's at a point where some of them even invite themselves into my home under the premise of being intoxicated with nowhere to go and practically refuse to leave. My complaints fall on deaf ears, and the expectation is that I've got it good, that these people want me. People seem to neglect the fact that they're freaking terrible to me. I was isolated from a friend group for months when I finally cracked and blocked the one girl, and it left me afraid that if I do that to any of the others, I'll end up entirely alone. Yeah, but do you really want to hang around with people like that? Story 13. I came out of the gym one day a few years ago, and as normal, headed straight for the pool. As I walked past the reception, the lady said, "Sorry, sir, it's ladies only at the moment." Me. As if. When is it men's only swimming? Receptionist. There are no men's only swimming times. Me. Oh, well, that's not fair, is it? Receptionist. We had to do this because there was once a man being a weirdo. Me. So us chaps are experiencing group punishment for the actions of one man? Receptionist. Well, what were we supposed to do? Me. Ban the one man? Receptionist. Me. I don't feel it fair to pay the same membership fee if I have less access to the facilities. Can I have a discount? Receptionist. If you have a problem, then you can write to the head office. Me. Goodbye. So I got home and canceled the direct debit and never went back. They can get their business from the man-witches who will tolerate such inequality. Businesses like that won't last long anyway. They're probably not there anymore. Story 14. Worked as a family portrait photographer briefly. My boss and coworkers, all female, basically treated me like I couldn't be left alone around children. It actually impacted my pay substantially. Every time I was up to photograph a family with a small child, which was most of the well-paying clientele, my boss would decide it was a good time to do a team shoot. That way she or one of my coworkers could help. She would always pass this off as them just wanting to play with the babies, but when it came time to sell packages and get commissions, I was always splitting my commissions with my female, chaperones. To make things worse, a lot of parents would come with the expectation that their photographer would be female. I understood in some cases, like maternity photos. Although I should point out I went to art school. I've done the bare figure drawing classes, I've taken anatomy. I was likely to be involved in the editing process anyway, so while I understood, it was also completely insulting. Like, what other reason other than me potentially being a creep is there for me not to do this job I was hired to do? Besides that, sometimes there was just no other reason. 2 parents, 3 kids, aged around 5 to 12. For some reason, they want a female photographer. I have a lot of experience with children and used to babysit in high school and college. That was part of why I got hired. So basically, the whole time I worked there, I had to gracefully dance around the fact that I was constantly being treated like I was either incompetent or dangerous, even though I was never either. Fortunately, I'm in an entirely different line of work now, although I do occasionally do family portrait stuff for friends and family. Story 15. I complained to my boss about a coworker who was female and pestering me in various ways. We were professional coaches for a professional team of youth athletes. She had much less experience than me, 15 years compared to 2 years, and she felt that she should have the lead position instead of me. I sensed this and began to cover myself from behind. Went to HR and reported all the bad stuff she says, had witnesses, even youth athletes came forward about her behavior. Direct rule infringement stuff like hanging with kids after practice alone. The kind of crap I would be in jail for. I continued to make my boss's boss aware, but later I was fired and found out from a coworker that my boss was not telling his boss because he knew I would just get fired right away since she and my boss's boss are close friends. I was eventually let go for telling a kid they can't smoke grass in the gym's parking lot and come to practice. The parents didn't like me calling their kid out in front of her friends and complained to my boss's boss, and he let me go. I recently got an email from HR, though, that the league or organization that runs the competitions banned my coworker from coaching. Not the gym I worked for, but a national organization. Considering suing the crap out of them. Do it. Story 16. When I was looking for a job, my friend suggested applying at their store as they were hiring. I went in with my resume and introduced myself to the manager. The next day at school, my friend told me that her manager is a sexist witch. Turns out she found my resume in the bin. When she questioned her manager about it, she told her that they don't hire boys, they detract customers. She found a new job and quit that one out of anger on my behalf. When a new ice cream place was opening in town, I thought I would email my resume. Like the advertisement said, as they had no physical location at this point. I never heard anything. No harm done. I was just looking for a second job to fill time. When it opened, I noticed something strange. All of the employees were young girls, like just eligible to get a job young. I personally wouldn't call this sexist, but at my first job, I was the first boy to work there. None of the clients bothered to learn my name and just referred to me as the boy. At my second job, my manager also referred to me as the boy. The boy to do that. Don't worry, I've got a boy to deal with that. Story 17. I was minding my own business, dancing in a club. A girl behind me thought I did something and shoved me extremely hard. I turned around confused and shoved her back. I didn't know what was going on, and I defended myself. My immediate reaction was that I was being attacked. It was semi-dark and I couldn't make out the person who had almost pushed me down, only that they were in front of me. I was kicked out. Story 18. Girl I shared one class with in my freshman year of high school made up a story that I essayed her over the summer, a week or two into sophomore year. I was called into the office, almost arrested. Got my mom, who worked in a law firm at the time, and she brought a couple of lawyer friends with her. While waiting, I said multiple times I didn't even know the girl, let alone attend any party over the summer. Eventually went to court and showed that it would be impossible as I didn't know about said party, didn't know the girl, didn't have a car, didn't have a license of any kind, and had printed out my entire internet history for the night it allegedly happened. Female judge ruled me innocent as there was no way I could have done it. Girl then breaks down in court that she did this as a way to get revenge on one of my cousins because my cousin kept getting positions or parts she wanted. People who essay deserve bad things to happen to them, but people who falsely accuse people of essaying also deserve just as bad crap to happen to them. I hope something happens to that girl. Story 19. I experience sexism at work daily. I work as LMS check-in agent at an international airport. My coworkers are all females except 3 of us. The other 2 guys are nowhere near me or in the same area, so it's just me. We all signed the same contract asking if we can lift 32 kg or 70 pounds stands more than 6 hours, etc. We get paid hourly the same rate, yet they think because I'm a guy I should have to lift their bags and help them move it. They always get a firm no when they can do it themselves. Sure, I'll help everyone, but don't be looking at me to be a gentleman. Story 20. The wedding photography industry is pretty sexist. Whether it's subconscious or they're entirely cognizant of it, everyone that's a part of it, from brides to wedding planners to staff, just will not extend the same kindness, warmth, or help to you if you don't come with some sort of feminine cachet. When I was shooting on my own, the amount of leads, conversations, and general helpfulness from the industry was way lower. Now that I shoot with my fiancé, it's honestly sort of hurtful how different the treatment is. But I guess I get it. Women connect with women, especially on their big day a lot more than men. But what's even stranger to me is women treat me differently knowing I'm engaged in working with another woman. They're a lot more friendly, complimentary, and outspoken. I always suspected as much when I was a dude shooting on my own and even voiced it in the forum once and was met with a lot of people telling me I was just bitter. In practice, exactly what I suspected is exactly as it is. Women just want to work with other women more. And honestly, my main job is an office position in construction these days. I prefer working with women in construction. They tend to be more about making the project work for everyone than making it work just for them. There's more cooperation, understanding, and empathy. Their egos are a lot smaller. So I'm conflicted. I get it, but it was still hurtful to experience. Story 21. When I was in South Carolina, it took me at least 27 applications to get a single callback. When I finally got one, they had waited almost a month to call me back. Got hired because of my speaking voice, history in theater, and pleasant demeanor. I was literally the only male employee other than the two managers. None of the other employees had waited more than 2 days for a callback. That includes the high schooler. In general, I have had to deal with a lot of people pretending I was being aggressive or intimidating. I had a guy scream and swear in my face one time. Literally all I said was, "Get out." Still wound up on disciplinary probation because the guy said he felt intimidated. That would not have held water if I were female. I had one girl claim I was stalking her, even though I was outright skipping meals to avoid her. She slept with my roommate, so he'd lied to the cops, saying I threatened someone. She did a lot of other crap that was only allowed to fly because she played the victim and did not yet have the social skills necessary to counter her. Just in general, my experience has not been a pleasant one. I've had very little luck with people and no longer have the energy to keep trying. I wish someone would just show genuine interest. Story 22. My teacher would lower all the grades of the boys and she would let the girls play video games during class. She would also yell at all the boys to shut your mouth, you're acting like children. Yeah, and when we were mildly talking and also were 14, we are kids. Sorry, I had to go on a mild rant. Story 23. I work in childcare. I've worked in multiple daycares and preschools. Lots of parents that I meet are really apprehensive of me because why would they want a male taking care of their kid? Some of the kids I meet are even scared of me at first, and mind you, I'm not a threatening-looking person. I'm 5'8", 130 pounds, soaking wet with blonde hair and blue eyes, but some kids, usually girls, still cry when they see me because they're so used to having women take care of them and I'm different from them. After parents get to know me and they see I can change diapers, feed snacks, clean up, and engage a room of 15-plus 2-year-olds better than the majority of my coworkers, they warm up to me. But those first few meetings can be a little awkward. It's only going to get worse as I get older and I'm no longer young and attractive. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 24. Worked at a well-known car rental place. The manager had all the guys washing the cars, doing the pickups and the grunt work while the females did whatever they wanted. Problem was, everything was scored and determined your ability to get promotions. After a couple of brutal weeks, I brought this up to him, and when I was getting reprimanded for my bad scores, and his reply was, "They're dressed nicer, so they shouldn't have to wash cars, and I should take advantage of every at-bat." I transferred to another manager's shop the next month. Another gooner spotted. Story 25. I work for a company that provides services for people with disabilities. Clients, or their parents, are able to fill any age or gender preferences they have for providers, and if those preferences are hard or flexible. Age preferences are usually flexible, but a good 3/4 of our clients have a hard preference for female providers only. At one point a few months after I started, I finally had a steady full-time schedule, which takes time to build up. I worked with 5 clients, 3 were female. The field manager at the time, for whatever reason, called me one day and said he was pulling me off of all female clients because he was no longer going to have male providers working with female clients across the board. No explanation beyond that, but insisted I had done nothing wrong. It was just a change he was making for everyone. This would have effectively cut me down to about 12 hours a week from 40 while trying to rebuild my schedule. Also, he didn't have 3 new male clients for me available the same hours, but he'd work on it, he said. One of my female clients who heard the news said she was just going to drop the company completely if she had to have a different caregiver and called to yell at the manager. This was good since she had higher needs and made up about half my weekly hours. Another one of my female clients worked with a few female providers, kept requesting new ones, and ended up one of my regular clients again within a few months. I ended up outranking that manager anyway by the end of my time with the company, so that worked out well. Story 26. I was denied a promotion. Twice. The first one was given to an androgynous overweight lesbian with no degree and no prior experience, and the second time to a 45-year-old woman with no degree and a year less time in service. I was told by the site manager, with them being the only women we had, and with so few female applicants, we'd be sending the wrong message if we didn't diversify male management. I'm not concerned with your message. I'm concerned with the thousands of hours of work and qualifications that are apparently worth nothing if I'm up against a female. Story 27. I've certainly had my fair share of emotional issues stemming from the whole guys aren't supposed to cry or get upset. That stuff peaked during the mid to late teens for me, I think. I went to some crappy school during that age. So very animalistic, I guess. With guys just constantly being mean to each other, all fighting for the alpha position. And if you cry or get angry or go to a teacher, you just solidify your position as the beta, the little witch who can't handle crap. I guess girls probably also have to deal with that, but for guys, it's just so barbaric. And it sticks with you, you know? As an adult, even if you know and you hear other people say that it's okay for a guy to cry, it's kind of too late. That stuff has already been embedded deep in your head. Another more concrete example I can remember happening a few times is this. Getting home with a bus or train late at night in my little town where the streets are completely quiet once it gets dark. Walking home, a woman will happen to walk in front of me, sometimes just a few feet in front of me, sometimes a whole block. She'll hear my footsteps, turn around and see me, and suddenly start walking a lot faster. I get the worry. I'm a big guy and we're alone in the street, but it kind of hurts because I wouldn't dream of harming a stranger in any way. I also don't know what to do in that situation. Shouting out, "Hey, I'm not going to SAU," seems like a bad idea. What I find myself doing in those situations is slowing down my pace, stopping completely for a moment to look at my phone, or sometimes even walking down a side street and taking a detour home, just to signal that I'm not following you. Story 28. In my first job when I was 19, desktop support, the assistant to the CEO would constantly be intimate towards me. Around the office, what little times I was called there. Now the woman was very hot, so obviously the first 2 times I was flattered and somewhat excited, but after a month or 2 it became annoying and somewhat demeaning. She wouldn't take me seriously. She would walk up behind me while I was helping a salesperson like, "Don't talk to my boyfriend for too long, honey." And I would look at her like, what the heck? After 2 to 3 years it never went away, and eventually this young girl who just started at the job asked me to help her with her email setup. She was very cute and flirty, but in a friendly, witty way, so we were having a fun chat. The assistant director saw this, called my boss to say I was fooling around on the floor, then walked up and did the same, "Hey, boyfriend," thing, except she was touching my arm or chest area. The girl was immediately uncomfortable and told her she shouldn't be touching staff members, and they got into an argument. CEO came out and the girl very loudly exclaimed the assistant was being extremely unprofessional with me, and some other women in the office spoke up and said the same. I was shocked. She was fired 2 weeks later. I don't know if I learned anything from it. It was just something I dealt with for 3 years because I thought no one actually cared, considering she did it all the time in front of them. Story 29. I think everyone talks about how much women are objectified, but not enough attention is given to how much African American men are as well. There is an entire corn genre around it. You see jokes about it on all the TV sitcoms, movies, etc. As a black man, I've been subject to some pretty freaking disturbing behavior when I've chosen not to go along with a stereotype. It's to the point where I've been so mistreated that when I've turned down some women, they get straight up cruel. Called me gay, said I probably have a small Johnson and a failure as a black man. I had one girl push me down after repeatedly saying I wasn't in the mood, or they've hit me, spread rumors, etc. I think because of the stereotype, black men are just expected to be these over creatures or the prowess to please a woman and always be DTF, and for the most part, a lot of guys go with it because, hey, it gets you to do some. But when you don't play the role when they expect you to, it can get very ugly very fast. The fact that as a man, anything involving a child is suspect. I took my friend's daughter to the park, sitting on a bench and watching her and having had the cops call on me because the girl happened to be a different skin color. But I bet if I was a woman, that wouldn't have happened. But anytime a man is alone with a child, people assume the worst, but anytime a woman is, she's just taking care. I remember as a young man I used to volunteer at an after-school program for kids. My mom was driving by and saw me on the lawn in front of the building, playing tag with the kids. I got home and got a very stern talking to from my mom about how it looked as a few of the kids were girls and it looked like they were jumping all over me and I was grabbing all over them. I told her we were just playing and having a good time. Now my mom was being protective and was all, "What if one of the girls says you grabbed them inappropriately? What if someone else doesn't see it that way and decides to get involved?" Honestly, the conversation really sickened me. Not because of the accusations she was making, but because I knew she was right. And that is the kind of world we live in where a man who loves working with kids is always in jeopardy, where a woman doing the same isn't given much as a second look. There are a lot more, but those are the top 2 I haven't seen mentioned. Story 30. To a smaller and less intentional extent than the state's preset notions on custody, people have some implicit notions about single fathers. I spent years as a single father. I would get occasional funny looks or comments when I was the only dad bringing my daughter to birthday parties, recitals, school events, etc. Years later I married, and again, not intentional digs at me, but I was on the receiving end of some strange notions. Now that your wife is around, my daughter can come for sleepovers. Things along those lines as if I was a threat before, but now I'm not. I know they didn't mean it that way, but some people are just weird about single men in custody of children. I even did it to myself, not offering to host sleepovers or slumber parties because I didn't want people to think I was trying to take their daughters into a trap. I can't imagine how poorly it would go for a single man attempting to adopt a child. Story 31. My daughter was taken from me 4 months by her mother because my longtime girlfriend, now wife, moved in. She keyed my girlfriends in my cars. Called the cops. They arrested her for DV. They dropped the charges because it was minuscule. Took about $10,000 to get to court, and once I provided proof that I cared for her 52% of the time over the last year, the judge told me that it didn't matter if I had her 98% of the time. I was going to pay child support. I lost the case. As far as support, jumped from $250 a month to $925 a month, but got my daughter 49% of the time. In 11 years, my daughter's mother has cared for her exactly 3 weekends, whereas I've lost count at how many times she has forfeited her time and I kept my daughter for weeks at a time. Story 32. I joined a lab for my PhD where I was the only male in the lab. There was an empty perfume bottle that had the structure of estrogen taped on it that was given to me. The last guy in the lab got it as well, I guess, so I could fit in. Not ideal, not the worst. Then lab meetings started following a routine of often suggestions or ideas I had was dismissed, but when it was revisited at a later date, it was a real good idea that we should be working on. I also got talked to a number of times because I would listen to music rather than participate in chats in the lab. Not scientific ones, just random things of a more personal nature. Then there were the few times that I had to account for all the time I spent working on things, or my helping the other PhD students wasn't considered useful. Helping them design and carry out experiments wasn't a good use of my time since they were senior to me in the lab. Then we had a fun experience of preparing a more senior student for a talk. I was apparently being mean when asking scientific questions about their project because they couldn't answer them. Basic questions like, how are you including a specific set of cells in this brain region, or all of them? It all came to a head when we sat down, when my project wasn't making the headway the PI wanted, and I was told that when things didn't work, I tried new things rather than continually working on the thing that didn't work. Fun times. I transferred out of that lab a few weeks later. Story 33. I was once called a kitty fiddler because I was talking to a kid in a store. It was a little boy who was sitting on a brand new bike. Him and his parents were in line to buy some things in the new bike. Well, the kid fell off and the parents asked if he was okay. I turned to him and I said, "You know what you do when you fall off a horse? You get back on and try it again." The mom lost her crap and told me not to talk to her child and was calling me a kitty fiddler as loud as possible. It was embarrassing and I had to leave quickly. The other day, my wife and I were standing in the returns line at Target and I observed her interaction with the baby. The parents had the baby over their shoulder and the baby was looking back at my wife and she's all goo goo gaga and playing with the baby and everyone was okay with it. Like if it were me, I'd be a kitty fiddler because I'm a man. It's freaking stupid. Story 34. I tell the story whenever a question like this comes up. It was St. Patty's Day in Minneapolis. I just moved there, went to some flashy Irish bar downtown to meet my brother-in-law. It was his birthday. Place was freaking packed. I get a beer outside in the tent thing they got set up for the party and go in. I'm looking for my brother-in-law, so I'm scanning and trying to find him, and this girl sticks her foot out and trips me. I fell over her foot, twist my ankle, spill my beer all over the floor. Everyone is laughing at me. People that even saw her trip me are laughing at me. I was so embarrassed. The bouncer saw me fall and came rushing over. I think he assumed I was intoxicated. He asks me what happened. I don't have to say anything because the girl who tripped me says, "It's okay. It wasn't his fault. I tripped him." And the bouncer is like, "Okay," shrugs his shoulders and leaves. I'm just trying to get back on my feet and collect myself and figure out what the heck just happened. She helps me to my feet and is like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to fall like that. I just meant to trip you a little." I guess I kind of knew what she meant, but I'm hurt and embarrassed and mad. And I said, "You did this on purpose? Why?" And she says something like, "I saw you walking around and I thought you were cute and I just wanted to get your attention. It's so busy here, huh?" She did offer to buy me a beer and did apologize, but I was so livid I just said firmly, "No." And I returned to my quest of finding my brother-in-law. As I'm walking around, limping in pain and soaked in beer, I start to think about the inequality and downright unfairness of that situation. Could you imagine if I did that to her? I'd be lucky if the bouncer threw me out and didn't call the cops. I'd probably be facing a charge and I'd also probably have the crap kicked out of me by one or several bystanders who watched me trip a woman. Story 35. I guess it's something pretty common. Back when I was in high school, it was a given that if anyone screamed at my family, they would get hurt. Fights were never reported in my school, but I had fought a couple of guys over that reason. One day, a girl decided to scream at my grandmother. She was one of those girls that screamed at everyone and everything and acted tough because, "Oh, I'm a girl, you won't hurt me." So I hurt her, and instantly some people pulled me away from her and started calling me names, and I got in a fight with a friend of hers who thought he was doing the right thing. How would they defend the woman but not the other men who did the same thing? I'm pretty sure she was actually stronger than some of the tough wannabes that I had fought with in the past. If you want to act like a man and provoke a man, I expect to be harmed like a man. Story 36. I work at a restaurant, and out of the last 25 plus employees that have been hired for the front of the house, 2 of them have been guys. I'm also the only white male who was ever hired for the wait staff, and that is probably because I got hired by the owner before he let his fiancée be the GM. The other 2 male servers have worked there for over 5 years and were also hired before she was put in charge. She treats everyone like they're mentally inept trash. However, if the guy messes up or gets a bad review, she will threaten to fire us or suspend us. But if it's a girl, they get warnings or she will side with them. I had a girl who no-call, no-show 2 days in a row. They walked out in the middle of 2 shifts during the next month. When she told them she wanted to quit, they even offered to give her a month off so she could have a break. If any of us guys even walked out on a shift, we would be fired on the spot. Story 37. When I was 15, my mom got mad at me, shoved me in the corner and hurt me. Keep in mind that she was twice, if not thrice, my strength. And I was a scrawny 15-year-old. Out of defense, I swung my arms attempting to get her off of me, and I ended up hurting her. She fell to the floor, and I went to my room. A few weeks later, I told my aunt about the situation, and the only thing she had to say in response was to never ever, and I mean ever, hit a woman, or I'll get every man and woman in this family to kick your bum. It's like she completely disregarded the fact that I was pinned into a corner by somebody twice my physique and getting mauled. I believe there should be some exceptions to this don't hit women rule, if it's in self-defense. Story 38. I was at a hospital rotation for paramedic school. Basically, you spend a day in different hospital areas to learn aspects of each medical call you could run. This day I was on the OBGYN floor to hopefully see childbirths. When I arrived, I introduced myself and was told to wait for the charge nurse. She came to the break room and immediately said, "This is a woman-run floor. Men don't matter to her. Stay out of her way. You can study here." And walked out. Luckily, at some point, a young nurse must have felt bad and asked if I wanted to help her with vitals and IVs. I was able to see one birth, which was awesome. I'd seen my son being born, but I give a lot of credit to a woman in labor allowing a male student to see her give birth. I really appreciate those people. Nobody else talked to me. If it wasn't for that one cool nurse, the day would have been wasted. Story 39. Went to Walmart one day with my girlfriend so she could buy some tumbler cups. She customized them and sells them afterwards. Well, after getting all the cups and ready to check, we get to the front of the line checking out and the total comes out to more than $10, and the cashier, a 50-year-old man, says, "Are you really going to let her pay that? That's embarrassing." I was left stunned to hear that and didn't even know what to say, and was left even more stunned when my girlfriend said that was embarrassing. You couldn't pay more than $10 for me? Wow. After I got my mind back together after both experiences, she got a piece of my mind and how sexist that was. Also publicly embarrassed and let her know she needs to get home to cook and wash clothes because it's embarrassing me. A man has to do that. Last part was petty, but I was heated after both situations. Story 40. Not me, but my brothers. I have 2 older brothers, and when I was really depressed, my parents took it pretty seriously and were extremely supportive. I feel a lot better now, but one of my older brothers has been going through some really tough times lately and is really depressed. I feel like he's not being taken as seriously as me, and my parents kind of brush it off because, well, he's seeing a therapist, so that's good. It upsets me a whole lot, which is why I'm the one taking him seriously. Story 41. As a father in court fighting for my son, everyone tries to say, "It's not like he used to be. Fathers are equal now." This is an outright lie. I have 5 years behind me of feeling less than, getting the screw face, not getting a chance to be heard. Every 6 months after things get settled, I find myself back in court for a whole new round of pin the blame on the schmuck. Guess what? 6 months is almost here again, and I feel that change in the air. I'll be served again in a matter of weeks. The kicker? I have the bulk of custody. Only because she made some choices that they couldn't spin in court, yet still I go. I fight against stacked odds, and little by little, my foundation is eroded. Every time this happens, my anxiety ramps to 11. It takes a few more years of my life, and I'm painted as a schmuck by a professional victim and human puppy mill. My son has never been more successful than he is now. I'm the only constant in his life. Stable and safe. I feel the creeping dread, though. It truly feels like the ground is coming out from beneath me, and I'm terrified. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.